And the thing is that they called that Hillary's war. She was the Secretary of State at the time under Barack Obama, but she's really the one who championed that. And I believe Obama wrote in his book that he was 50-50 and that Hillary really pushed him to that. And he said his big regret was that he didn't think about what came next after Gaddafi, because somehow we haven't learned that lesson yet. Like after Iraq, you'd never thought of that.
But thank God Trump's figured it out.
Oh yeah, Trump's figured it out. We'll go in this drastic new direction of getting the seventh war that they wanted.
Don't be a pussy, Dave. Jesus Christ! Did you see that one? I don't know what military expert was on television who said something about I'm a fan of boots on the ground, like Rome. Like, hey fucker, Rome didn't have nuclear weapons and drones. Rome didn't have drones that hunt you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Boots on the ground? Should we fight with swords? Should we get everybody to fight with swords? Is that what you're saying? The fuck are you saying?
Well, also, like, what even is the plan with boots on the ground? Like, what are you talking about here? You're gonna take an island. It goes, okay, well then you're gonna be a target. You're gonna be target practice as long as the Iranian regime is still standing. And if you're talking about militarily occupying the country, like we did with Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, this is a huge country with 92 million people. How many soldiers do you think you need to occupy that country?
Yeah.
At least 500,000, and probably you can't do it with that. So what are you talking about here? And so you're saying, what are we going to start a draft for the least popular war going in American history?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, this is maybe slightly more popular than Vietnam.
Going in, it's less. I'm sure Vietnam by the end was very, very unpopular.
Well, Vietnam going in didn't make any sense, did it? There was, I guess, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. But most people in America were like, why are we doing this? What's going on? You're drafting people to go to Vietnam? We're fighting communism in Vietnam?
Yeah.
What?
Well, they called it Vietnam syndrome that the American people had, which is that we didn't want to fight a war again after that. That's from their perspective, that's a syndrome. It's really something. They think, by the way, Ben Shapiro used this same line he said, Trump finally broke Iraq war syndrome. Because they think, see, from Ben Shapiro's perspective, the illness is after you lie the American people into a war and slaughter 1 million people. The illness isn't that. You might look at that as the bad part, but the bad part is that these annoying Americans have this tendency to not want to do that again after that. But he claims Trump has broken Iraq war syndrome. Of course, there's really no evidence with support of the American people that has changed at all. And, the George H.W. Bush was said to have defeated Vietnam war syndrome in Panama and in Iraq, because they were relatively easy, right? Bloodless on the American side, or very, very limited, injuries and deaths, and they, they weren't like quagmires that went on forever or whatever. But of course, after the Persian Gulf War in 92, we went on to be bombing Iraq for ever since, essentially. For 30 straight years after that, we were still at war with that country.
Think for 1 million people being dead.
Yeah.
What is public support? Let's put that into our sponsor Perplexity. What is current public support for the Iran war in America? And first of all, how will they know? No one's asked me. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fair point.
That's what I would say about polls. When was the last time you answered a poll? When was the last time anybody called you up and said, Dave, man, first of all, when was the last time you ever picked up the phone if you didn't know who was calling? And then when you do answer, when was the last time you said yes to a poll?
I don't even remember ever getting called.
It has to be the dumbest of dumb people that answer those polls. So then you got to realize, out of those stupid fucking idiots, even how many of them think the war's a good idea?
It's even unpopular amongst them.
I mean, what does it say here? Most recent national polls show Americans overall oppose the current war with Iran and think U.S. military action has gone too far. A Quinnipiac poll finds 54%. What is Quinnipiac? Quinnipiac poll finds 54% of U.S. voters oppose U.S. military action against Iran, and 39% support it. I wonder how many of those 39% are Jews. And
well, not too much. We don't have the numbers.
A poll reports about right. What is the number of Jewish people in America?
2%, something like that.
6 in 10 adults say U.S. military action against Iran has gone too far. Only about a quarter say it's been about right. 25%. PUFA. First of all, whenever you're talking about these kind of things, it's like, who are we talking about? Who was asked? Finds Republicans largely support the military action. Around 86% support. Whoa.
Yeah,
really? Because I talked to a lot of Republicans that think it's a terrible idea, while large majorities of Democrats, around 92%, and independents, about 64%, oppose it. 92%. Who are the 8% of Democrats that are like, let's fucking go? You think maybe they're Jews?
Or they work for CNN. They were, whatever.
CNN thinks it's a good idea? No.
Dude, CNN is running cover for Donald Trump during this time.
Come on. For real?
Oh, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, they put up a poll the other day. They had a graphic that said 100% of MAGA supports the war in Iran. It's like after all these years.
Say he liked it or something like that.
Oh, but hold on a
CNN
second.
Likes me.
Is that running cover, or is that making them look bad? Because most Americans don't support the war, and most Democrats, 92%, don't support the war. So if that's the case, wouldn't that just make it look like these MAGA people are a fucking problem?
I guess.
Oh my God, MAGA GOP view of Trump. Can I hear how he says it? Or would it be a problem?
It's not him talking, it's someone else talking.
Oh, okay. That seems bonkers. It seems bonkers. Approve, 100%. How many people did you ask? 2.
Well,
two guys with MAGA hats on.
If you notice the way they say this, right? So they don't just say GOP voters. They say MAGA GOP voters. And so what they're doing here is that they're filtering who they consider to be MAGA, and who they consider to be MAGA are the people who still say they support Donald Trump. But almost like 100% of the people who don't support this war stopped supporting Donald Trump over it.
Right, but look at this little thing on the bottom they don't show you. 66%, 31% split among non-MAGA.
Right.
But is that non-MAGA Republicans? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think that's non-MAGA Americans, I believe.
How, like the whole MAGA thing, it's like, we're so fractioned as it is.
Yeah.
Like this whole idea of right versus left as it is, and now you've got a MAGA section of the right.
It's all just ridiculous, dude. But it's a way to describe it as anything other than what it is, which is the most unpopular war in American history going into it. And for good reason. Look, dude, he didn't even bother to like sell us on a propaganda campaign about it. It was like the laziest, like, just lie us into it.
Let's put on a fucking firm tinfoil hat right now. Let's get a double layer Reynolds wrap, fucking crease the edges, fold it down. Why would he want to do this? Why would he want to look? I am not denying that the regime of Iran is a giant problem. I'm certainly not denying that if I was Israel, I would not want them there. They hate you. They're trying to get a nuclear weapon. They're right there. I get the Israel position. I totally understand how they're so just vehemently in defense of their homeland. Like, they're surrounded by people that hate them. They're the one Jewish country. Everyone else is a Muslim. They all want a caliphate. They all want to kill them. It's been going on forever. They think it's in God's word that they have it. It's a lot of craziness. Mm-hmm. I get it. Why now? Like, why now? Like, what does that make any sense?
Well, Trump himself has said, which literally this would be like considered an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory if anyone else had said it, but Donald Trump has openly talked about many times how the Adelsons give him all this money and they come by every day and all they have is another demand on behalf of Israel. Donald Trump also very early in his political career got in trouble with the Israel lobby and then immediately pivoted to to winning their favor back over by saying he would tear up the JCPOA, the Iran deal that Obama got us into. And it looks to me, there's speculation aside, who knows exactly what control they have over the guy. But it looks to me that after Venezuela and when there were these big street protests and riots against the regime and around there, that they convinced Trump, and this is what Joe Kent, his director of counterterrorism, has said too, that they essentially convinced him that this would be the time you could do it swiftly, surgically remove the regime, and the people would rise up and overthrow it. And this is what Donald Trump said when he launched this war. He said, this is a regime change, and I'm calling on the great people of Iran to rise up. And they did. They rose up by at least the hundreds of thousands. They were out in Tehran in defense of the regime, chanting death to America. Because it turns out when you kill 165 little girls, that doesn't make a country go, we love you. Thank you for that.
But before the bombing, there were people in the streets that were protesting. And people were killed because of that. A lot. That's the other thing, is that regime is like they clamp down, and they do it with public figures. They killed a very prominent wrestler from Iran. Really, two of them. They killed one a few years back. The UFC tried to step in and somehow or other stop it, but he was also one that was accused of protesting against the government.
Listen, I don't know about this most recent one. I'm not saying this is true at all. I don't trust any governments, but they claimed he killed a few cops. That's what the Iranian regime said he was being hung for. Now, I don't know.
The wrestler?
Yeah, the wrestler. He was convicted of that, whatever that means in a mullah-run court, Yeah. So I'm not saying that's right at all, but I will say this, right? The Donald Trump, when he launched this war, and there's been a whole lot of just false claims that have been made, but he said specifically that they killed 32,000 protesters. There has not been a shred of evidence presented to back up this claim. Now, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not putting it past this government that they would do that. And they've acknowledged that a lot of people have died. I think the last I had seen was that I know they were saying, the government of Iran, this is before the Ayatollah was killed, they were saying it was something like 3,000 people had died. And then the CIA
But when you say died, does it mean they killed the protesters?
That's unclear. That's not what they are claiming. But then the CIA, at least there was a piece in the in the Wall Street Journal where they had said, and this was like a week and a half into it, that they estimated like 6,500 or something like that. But this is a huge question, right? It's not clear at all. Like, were they lining people up and just executing them for the crime of protesting? They hung the wrestler. But I'm saying the people who have been killed here.
Iran protest death toll could top 30,000, according to local health officials. And this is from Time magazine. As many as 30,000 people could have been killed in the streets of Iran on January 8th and 9th alone. Two senior officials of the country's Ministry of Health told Time, indicating a dramatic surge in the death toll. So many people were slaughtered by Iranian security services that Thursday and Friday it overwhelmed the state's capacity to dispose of the dead. Stocks of body bags were exhausted, the official said, and 18-wheel semi-trailers replaced ambulances.
Now, listen, all I'm saying here, man, is that you got to be I've just seen this movie play out a lot of times. You got to be really careful about these accusations that are made in the run-up to a war. They're basically saying, we have a source who told us this.
What year was this? I mean, excuse me, what date was this?
January 25th.
January 25th.
So the protest started in late December and then in January. This is
Time was unable to independently verify these figures.
That's right. Listen, the claim being made here, right, is that in this they said in 2 days, 30,000 people were killed. If that is true, that is up there with one of the biggest massacres in human history. The biggest massacres during World War II were like around that. The numbers.
Says, as of Saturday, U.S.-based human rights activist news agency had confirmed 5,459 deaths and is investigating 17,000 more.
Yes.
So that's at least close. So we're in the neighborhood. We're in the 20s. Just if what they're investigating turns out to be accurate.
If that's the case, but we're talking also here, Joe, about like NED-funded U.S.-based NGOs who are really Iran hawks.
Good point.
And I'm just saying, like, look, the claim here is that Iran, I saw a bunch of the Zionists online when this was first coming out back in January. They were like, oh my God, they've already killed half as many people as died in Gaza in just a couple days. And you're like, right, that's a hell of a claim, right? I mean, like, if you, just from following wars all these years, if you started carpet bombing Tehran, Vietnam style, carpet bombing Tehran, after 2 days, that's the type of death toll you'd be looking at.
Well, the thing is, they don't have internet access to
they shut down the internet during that period.
Yeah.
So, but there were pictures that came out. All I'm saying is that if you had numbers like that, you would expect there to be some evidence that you could point to. And there's like one picture where they've pointed to like a couple dozen body bags and been like, see, look at this. But look, I'm not. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. I'm very skeptical of these claims when they're made right before we launch a war. But I think the other point is that at least according, and there has been some evidence of this, right? There were police stations that were burned. There were mosques that were attacked. These were not just peaceful protests. I'm not saying they don't have a right to violently rise up and overthrow their government, whatever. But all the hawks in the West were saying these people are trying to overthrow their government.
Not only that, in the past, our agencies, our intelligence agencies, have engaged in nefarious practices where we have conscripted certain people to go and light things on fire and blow things up and create these events to accelerate.
Front page of the Jerusalem Post, they were bragging that there was Mossad within the protests.